Defect became the first offshore boat to sweep an entire season. That's strung together more consecutive victories.
That's right, Art. Carl Myers tried, Jack Carmody tried, John Rebben tried, and Reggie Fountain tried, but nobody could get the job done. Nobody could stop the winning streak of Leith Ferrone and Johnny Tomlinson. They truly had a zero defect kind of a season.
Zero Defect started the season out in Galveston in true form, just blowing everyone else away and lapping just about the whole field on way to their first checkered flag of 1996.
An extremely well-prepared team, Art. Oftentimes you can tell the difference between first and second place by who does their homework. Johnny Tomlinson and Leith Ferrone spent the entire offseason developing this boat, came up with several very innovative new wrinkles that really paid them dividends. Not only was the boat fast, but it also lasted. Amazing, amazing performance with tremendous consistency.
Fort Myers brought on some new competition, mainly Reggie Fountain and Jack Carmody. This is Reggie Fountain in the number 76 Ohio Steel, a 42-foot fountain with three 1,000 horsepower Mercuries. It was then known as Carlos and Charlie's, number 38, the Spirit of Texas, with Jack Carmody, who finished second to Zero Defect in Galveston.
Speeds in the open division, Art, early in the season approached 120 miles per hour, which made some of the other boats in the field look like they were parked.
Zero Defect in Fort Myers, sending Reggie Fountain back to second place and Jack Carmody to third as they took the checkered flag.
A picture-perfect ride. Look at the boat riding right up on the steps in complete control. And then the scene changed from the smooth waters of Fort Myers to the rough stuff in Sarasota. A new rival, Ohio Steel. From the Fountain Racing Boat stable, John Rebben.
Carl Myers in number 39, How Sweet It Is, who at Galveston had engine problems and did not start, was getting his boat up and running with turbo engines at the time.
In the largest open class fleet that we saw all season, the number 5 Lightning Jack. With John Woolley and Bill Dunham, they offered pursuit.
They took a third place and later backed that up with a fourth at Palm Beach. The Spirit of Texas. Jack Carmody was determined, but he was also getting frustrated not being able to catch Leith in Zero Defect.
Considered by many as the premier event on the Offshore Tour, Zero Defect won in Sarasota.
The series would leave Florida, Zero Defect 3 for 3. But perhaps the most serious challenge midway through the season happened here on the Chesapeake. A great start by Carl Myers, and How Sweet It Is, the whole shot, putting that red number 39 in front of Zero Defect in the early going.
A sight we hadn't seen all year at the start of the race. How Sweet It Is put almost a 4-second lead on Zero Defect. Johnny Tomlinson and Leith Ferrone then decided it was time to make their move.
You see them in front of the biggest spectator fleet of the year, about 2,000 boats. This was the return of a champion in pursuit of Zero Defect. Jack Carmody, before the race, bought last year's national championship boat, US 1.
Found out that in the rough water conditions that we're having a hard time staying with the new 46s they're building. They're actually as light as this 40. So after thinking about it and running a few races, we've decided to go ahead and buy a 46, and we ended up buying Stuart Hines' boat, the US 1 boat that won the World Championship last year. So we'll be running that boat in this race.
For Zero Defect, the Chesapeake Bay was actually 3 races within a race. The first race they had at the beginning stages, How Sweet It Is, it took them almost a full lap to run down Carl Myers. In the middle stages of the race, Johnny Tomlinson and Leith Ferrone plotted strategy, averaging speeds around 110 miles per hour. They started to make their move, inching ahead of Art Lilly and Jack Carmody as they got their sea legs in the Spirit of Texas.
Zero Defect carried the lead throughout the race, but in the last 2 laps, it was US 1 catching up to Leith Ferrone.
Less than 3 seconds separated Zero Defect and the Spirit of Texas at the checkered flag.
Field to disrupt the and they were all after him. Ohio Steel, Reggie Fountain, US 1, you name it, they were there.
Art, this season on the Offshore Racing Tour, there was a move to design the courses to be more spectator-friendly, a little bit smaller courses with a lot more turns. Zero Defect used that for their advantage. At the beginning of the year, they developed a multi-speed transmission. They were the only boat that had it. They were able to go into a turn and actually downshift, which gave Zero Defect a tremendous edge. This big catamaran didn't quite labor through the turns, didn't bog down like some of the other boats, gave them a real edge in acceleration coming off the pins. John Rebin in the Ohio Steel thought he could run down Zero Defect. He had a lighter boat, but couldn't get it done. Reggie Fountain, all season long, tried to offer pursuit in his big V-bottom, probably one of the fastest V-bottoms that's ever been made, but he just couldn't run with the big cats.
And inspired by his second-place finish at the Chesapeake, Jack Carmody, in the spirit of Texas, was pulling all the stops. He would take a third, though, in Palm Beach. Behind the leaders, a real good battle for 4th and 5th in Palm Beach between Sudden Impact and Lightning Jack. With the sun glistening off the sea, our helicopter zeroes in on the 36-foot fountain with two 850-horsepower engines.
At the finish line, it was the same sight once again. Zero Defect. Johnny Tomlinson and Laith Ferrone. They'd won in the rough water in Sarasota, and they did it again here in Palm Beach. And then the scene switched to the West Coast, the final race of the season. With history in the making and the pressure on, let's take a look at the start of the race from inside the cockpit of Rick Bowling's Jelly Belly Gone Again. At the top of the screen, Zero Defect on your right, Carl Myers on the left, reminiscent of the race up on the Chesapeake, a real dogfight on the run to the first turn.
You have to hand it to Carl Myers, number 39 in the red boat. How sweet it is, coming all the way from New York out to California simply for the competition. He took the turbo engines out of How Sweet It Is, put Mercury engines back in, was very competitive. Despite the fact the national championship was already sewed up by Zero Defect, Carl Myers made a real race of it at Ventura. It had never been done before. Winning every race, 6 out of 6 on the season for Zero Defect, a true storybook year. Of course, the research and development before the season started was one of the big keys, but the dedication of many, not just the principals in the boat.
You know, our John Tomlinson and Laith Ferrone probably don't get the credit that they deserve. It was a real long season, and one has to wonder, what was the turning point?
The turning point had to be Sarasota. I mean, the big dogs were there. Everybody was there. Everybody was looking to us, these guys, you know, whether they can continue that streak or, you know, the pressure was on. And, you know, we took it one day at a time, one step at a time. And I think after Sarasota, everybody felt that, you know, these guys are here to stay, and these guys are the real deal.
How do you feel you've gotten the credit that the two guys inside the boat have kind of earned the stripes that they deserve? It's not just a boat, it's not just engine, but there's people in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, it's part and parcel. Everybody, you know, plays a role in the team effort. You know, again, I have to stress that it is a team effort. And, you know, like I say, you know, basically my team gets the boat ready for me to go out there on Sunday. And basically when I get in that boat on Sunday morning, basically I got a job to do, and that's basically to win the race.
Outstanding champions. And you'd think after sweeping a season there'd be some jealousy from the other competitors. But they're well respected and liked by the opposing teams. Based on his 1996 performance, John Tomlinson has to be considered the premier throttle man of the season. We asked him about the keys to this year.
There isn't really any one key. It's just it's a real good mesh of a group of guys working real hard, and everybody's had the same goal, and we've been real fortunate. I mean, let alone finish an offshore race, let alone finishing every race, let alone winning the races. I mean, that's something, if you would have asked me in the beginning of the year, I would have said, no way, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You're not going to win every race, but like I said, we've been very fortunate this year.
Our final thoughts when the Fountain Powerboat Owens Corning APB Offshore Year in Review